One.
Coming to you live from deep within an actually quite sunny and balmy and flowery radioactive wasteland. We are the survivors of the alt-right Keck apocalypse. The few, the brave, the bitchy, once more wading into battle against the froggy lobster homemaker hordes with our housewives' secret terrorists. We need to talk about this. Rantzerker, number 214. I am your host, Allison, and with me is the indomitable Brian and Karen. Not the Karen of the meme, but the original Karen. The OG. Karen. The OG.
Yeah, no, I also, no, that the horrible thing, I have a roast in the oven.
Uh-oh. Oh my,
dun, dun.
You heard it here, folks. She's plotting something. She's plotting
I popped a pork roast in the oven just before I broke out this horrible Chromebook. Why did they change? Like, why don't they all just have the same keyboard layout? Like, why would the right pinky finger enter button be like tiny on this thing? Why would that? Like, I just don't understand.
Because they want to differentiate themselves, and they want to make it so that it's difficult to change platforms, I guess. But if you were hoping that we'd start earlier, it was in fact technical difficulties that got us. Karen attempted to launch the Video Ninja program, and everything quit. So it's all Karen's fault.
Yeah, no, it's all your fault because you didn't tell me we were going to be on camera. I thought it was going to be audio. And audio works on my.
It's all my fault. I tried to deflect blame there for a moment, but it was not successful. Anyway, so what we're doing today is we are going to cover a report from the International Center for Counterterrorism.
I don't know how we could be terrorists. I can't even get my freaking computer to work.
I don't even think we're mentioned this time.
This time.
Nope. This time, I believe it was just a voice for men that was mentioned. But also, trad wife influencers. Which really threw me. Yes. Like, I'm like, okay, so women who bake for their family and homeschool are now terrorists, according to the ICCT. And just to the story of how this came about, like, I got this. A feminist tweeted it at me with this insinuation that if she looked in my background, she'd find all kinds of charges, presumably of like some kind of violent charges related to terrorism, which okay, no, but anyway. So, but what astounded me is when I looked into it. So because I was curious about what she was talking about. When I looked into it, I'm like, there's a section on basically housewives. That's it. Like, they're housewives, and I mean they're housewives within a conservative context that recognizes that masculinity and femininity are complementary, but mostly they're just housewives. And the way that they're talking about these housewives is just
insane.
Chef's kiss insane. Like just insane. So I said, we got to do this, and it's not because like they're targeting us necessarily, but because you're basically saying June Cleaver is a terrorist, an anti-American terrorist.
Well, who knows what she does with those pearls?
Exactly. Well, there you go. I mean, those are
probably garrotes people with them all the time.
Yeah, they're secretly like piano wire holding together those pearls. Yeah. But anyway, so it's like it's just absurd. So I thought we could delve into the absurdity that is now U.S. counterterrorism. Because God knows, there aren't enough gang members.
Actual terrorists.
Yeah, or like gang members from
MS-13. Or the guy who was like the head of Hezbollah Azerbaijan, who was there was a citizen reporter at the southern border, saying, where are you from? Where are you from? And the guy says, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? And he says, I'm not telling you. if you don't know, you'll know soon enough. Turns out he's like the head of Hezbollah, Azerbaijan, right? So,
Well, God forbid, like a woman bake a cake. That we gotta shut that shit down.
it's probably a bomb in it.
Probably not. It's just a cake, and it's supporting gender roles, which is the real form of terrorism. Let's be frank. Anything that supports women in the home and men working is true terrorism. And I remember a while back when feminists said, yeah, we're not forcing women to make a choice. We support whatever choices women make. If they want to go to work, if they want to work or have stay home part-time, work part-time, if they want to stay home and take care of their families, we support all of it. We're open to whatever way a woman wants to structure her life. That's feminism, is about choice. And now, here we are, like 40 years later, and feminists are in a counterterrorism organization, insinuating that choosing to stay at home and make sandwiches is terrorism.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, we saw the first inklings of this when God, what was it? Anita Sarkeesian she was sitting on that panel, and she was saying that women who stay at home and look after their families while their husband works and makes good money, right? They're just making patriarchy work for them, and so like they need to be unbrainwashed or deprogrammed or something like that, right? And it's just like they're harming other women by doing that, and it's like, okay, well, I don't know. You can look around my house. It doesn't look like there's anybody particularly looking after it. But I do stay home and I do cook for my husband and now for my idiot son who moved out too soon and at the exact wrong time. He moved out right at the start of inflation. And so he's moved back in. He's weed whacking right now, which is, at least he's useful. Yeah.
Well,
so
okay, so this is where we're at. We are now, feminists said that women can have a choice, but now if you choose wrong, you're a terrorist. You're going to have the full force, the state apparatus making your life miserable if you choose other than what feminists decide. But get this, they're the pro-woman, anti-authoritarian option. Oh man, and that whole "it hurts other women," that particular rhetoric is the kind of rhetoric that justifies genuine violence against women.
Yes.
And it can justify any kind of violence. Oh, they hurt their own women, so we'll just kill everybody with drone strikes.
Yep.
That kind of rhetoric is extremely dangerous rhetoric, as we can see, because now feminists are basically, like I said, putting the full force of our so-called patriarchy against women who uphold the patriarchy. Get that one. Get that one. Get that Ouroboros bullshit into your head. All right, so I'll do the things.
All right, retard, come here.
You go deal with your dog. I'll do the things. Okay, so we are doing our monthly fundraiser at feedthebadger.com/support. If you would like to make sure that we can keep doing this, despite being on numerous blacklists, apparently, then please go there and put whatever you can to help us out for the month. Once again, that's feedthebadger.com/support. We exist because you support us, and pretty much for no other reason. I mean, we would likely be able to do this occasionally, but certainly not 5-6 times a week. So feedthebadger.com/support to keep this message going. And if you want to send a message to us, get your message going, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. We get the full benefit of whatever you send as a tip, and you get the full benefit of sending your comment through YouTube's comment enhancement system. So feedthebadger.com/support to support the show, and feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us your messages, your wisdoms. All right, so why don't we start with the ICCT's about page so everybody knows who these people are.
All right.
Yeah.
You want me to read from it?
Sure, since your voice is tip-top now.
Chocolatey and back, that's right.
Yep.
So, about ICCT. The International Center for Counterterrorism is a think and do tank based on.
Oh no. Oh no, they also do.
I think it
They also do.
Oh, look, I see the little guy back. Oh, he just disappeared. I said hi, and it scared
A
him off.
think and do tank based in The Hague, Netherlands. We provide research, policy advice, training, and other solutions to support better counterterrorism policies and practices worldwide. We also contribute to the scientific and public debates in the fields of counterterrorism and countering violent extremism, notably through our publications and events. We work with various governments, international organizations, and international agencies. Our activities are global, with a focus over the past few years on Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. I guess we like the United States already has like the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI and the CIA, so you know we don't want to overburden. I think ICE is involved too. I think they're literally pursuing, if I remember correctly, housewives, Catholics, and gamers. I think those are the top. Also incels, like virgins. You know, those are like the primary targets. Yeah.
Incels and also people who speak out at school board meetings.
Yeah.
They could definitely, you know, because considering the CIA does have a track record of using honeypots, so they could really solve the incel issue. Just get some.
Yeah.
Like overnight, you know, they could actually be productive. The CIA could do something of worth for once.
Yeah, no, get some of those incels laid.
Yeah, I think most of the honeypots are actually men though, so I think the incels can figure that out. They be in disguise, like poorly. You know, hairy legs, 5 o'clock shadow. You know, tell me more about that video game you like so much. Who's Sonic the Hedgehog?
Yeah, instead of thong panties sticking out over the top of the jeans, it'll be like boxer briefs that say Manscaped.
Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Oh boy. Okay.
ICCT is an independent foundation that was established in 2010 by the TMC Asser Institute. That's a funny name. Asser Institute. Leiden University's Institute of Security and Global Affairs, and Klingendale Institute, as a result of an initiative originating in the Dutch Parliament. Motion Corus, April 2008. I'm sure there's some Dutch people that are going to correct my pronunciation. I don't care. All right. Do you want to say something, or should I get into their mission and values?
Oh God. Just keep going.
Okay, just finish the mission and values, but
sorry, my volume was a little low. There's like background noise. I saw that my bar was picking something up, but I don't know if you guys are hearing that.
Well, that's a first, because usually
like my air conditioner. Well, I changed my I messed around with some settings in OBS so I wouldn't pick up as much background noise and my voice would sound better. So, but all right, they say it's better now.
What are you doing? No, put the hat back on.
Can they even see Borat? Because Karen has Borat behind her.
No, she's out of Borat's a little out of frame because I have it kind of like tight. It's like tightened.
Okay, let me get him. Come here.
Tighten it up.
Let's see him.
Tightened it up. You gotta put him in the frame where your face is at. There he is.
Look at that. Look at that. What a cutie pie.
Doggo.
He's a good boy.
Pets.
Yeah,
pets
no,
for Borat.
Kevin's really jealous. She's in the
pats
crate.
for Borat
really
in the
jealous.
chat, please. Give the doggy some pats. All right. You don't get to see him very often. So, all right, mission and values. We envision a world where societies are resilient to radicalization and polarization, and where citizens are protected by effective responses to terrorism. Oh, it's coming back. It's coming back.
Oh no, it's got his voice.
Responses to terrorism and violent extremism that are grounded in human rights and the rule of law.
Oh god.
So they have like pages I could go to.
Bullshit at once, eh?
Yeah, I know. It was like
He's choking on it.
He's choking on it. Sorry guys, technical
my own throat was trying to kill me.
Incredible level of bullshit that we just read. Oh, what's the lower one here? Is it anything of worth?
Mission and values. Oh, you want me to read the next one? Annual reports.
Annual reports. God, no, that's corporate speak. Let's move on.
Programs.
No.
Rule of law responses to terrorism.
Okay, sure.
What? Should I?
Yeah, sure. Because
Okay.
that's going to set up all of the hypocrisy and insanity of this.
Okay. In the last 2 decades, governments have increasingly adopted legislation that criminalizes the preparation, facilitation, and incitement of terrorism, as well as a range of administrative measures such as watch lists and the depravity of nationality. Depravity? Whatever. It's spelled different. I don't know what that is. Some of those efforts pose serious challenges to human rights and the rule of law. By ensuring that counterterrorism laws and measures are grounded in the rule of law and respect human rights, policymakers and practitioners can maximize effectiveness, reduce the likelihood of counterproductive consequences, and improve prosecution outcomes while upholding the rights of victims, witnesses, and the accused.
And by victims, they mean people who they actually victim classes, not actual victims of state overreach. Yeah, go ahead. Preventing and countering violent extremism. Let's continue.
All right.
As long as your vocal cords can manage it all.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I think I'm drinking, and anyway. Security-dominated responses to violent extremism have proven insufficient to counter and prevent its spread. Evidence and experience have shown that strategic, comprehensive, and holistic approaches can wield a far greater and more lasting impact on the prevention and countering of violent extremism. At the heart of PCVE is the need to address the myriad of factors that can fuel violent extremism, including discrimination and marginalization, poor governance, and lack of accountability of the state. For this reason, successful PCVE approaches must be underpinned by, and in many cases actively work to strengthen, human rights and the rule of law in communities affected by terrorism and violent extremism.
And somehow presenting housewives as potential violent extremists doesn't violate their right to whatever lifestyle that they feel is appropriate for themselves.
That's amazing. You said a whole truckload of words that had no meaning.
Yeah, they don't have any meaning. They're essentially directing threat narratives out of people who are just living their life. That's it. They've just made a choice of how they want to live their life. They are finding like-minded people to create a community, and these monsters are directing threat narratives at them.
Well, what I find interesting is one of the things that you mentioned initially was, like housewives who homeschool their kids. And that's really what's the thing here, right? Mm-hmm. Is homeschooling, right? Taking your kids out of government care, right? Government guardianship for the 6 to 7 hours a day that they spend getting programmed with the government narratives, right? And I can't tell you how important it is, even if you do have your kids in public school, right, to do counter programming at home, right? Like just basically say, there are subjects where there's a definite right and wrong answer, right? Like math and spelling, right? There's a definite right and wrong. There's one right answer, and all of the other ones are incorrect, right? Then there are other things that are a matter of opinion, and you need to really think about those things, and don't just believe what you're told, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're going to be told, and I think it was when the kids, when my older two first started coming home in elementary school with propaganda on environmentalism, environmental issues, right? And we went through. I mean, like it was mostly, kind of harmless, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, right? And all of that stuff. And I explained how, well, this all makes perfect sense. And we do that. We drink. We didn't buy drinking glasses. We drink out of jam jars in this house because why spend the money on drinking glasses when we can reuse things that we would just, and then when they get a chip or they get a crack or whatever, then we recycle them, right? Because why throw them away, right? And when they can be recycled, and all of those things, right? But if you actually go into, you know, the reasons why these things work, the reasons why they're a good idea, and it almost all things, if they're a good idea for the government and for society, they're also a good idea for you, right? In terms of, we don't have to buy drinking glasses. We can just use these leftover jars, right? We don't have to throw this in the two garbage containers that we're allowed every week, right? And maybe have to pay for the extra bag or whatever. We can recycle them, right? You return your bottles to the depot, you get some little bit of spending money, right? All of these things, right? All of these things, if they're good for the government, then they're generally good for you and they're worth doing. So, you know, you don't have stinky garbage leaking out of garbage bags sitting out on the curb. You've got a nice big tough green bin that's there with all your food scraps in it, right? And then they make dirt with it and it's great, you know. So you have all of these things that are really like, that are good, right? But then they slip in all of this other crap, and it's like, you know,
in cities, get lots of abortions. We need to reduce the population.
Are incandescent light bulbs really that bad? When do you, if you're in Edmonton or Saskatchewan, right? When do you have your lights on, right? In the winter, because it's light out here. Like here, it's light out in the summer. It's light out for what, 14 hours a day, so up to more than 16 hours a day, right? And so you never have your lights on really. And, you know, and okay, so they put out some waste heat. Okay, so your furnace doesn't have to work as hard. It's winter, right? And then when you're done with them, you just throw them in the trash because they don't contain toxic levels of mercury, right? Like compact fluorescents do, right? And, you know, they use a little extra energy, but like I said, if you're only turning them on in the winter, then who cares, right? So it's, you know, I'm
so
looking at it.
You made an effort to get them to think critically about these things.
All these things, right? And so I was just like, you know, when you actually boil everything down, you know, there's some things that are almost always going to be a good idea, and some things that are going to be like good in context, and then there are other things that are just completely unsupported, right? They don't make any kind of sense. All of the cars on the road right now, I saw a video. The cars on the road right now are older than ever, right? You know, when you just take the average age of cars on the road right now. Well, why is that? Why is that? Number one, it's because the cost of new cars has gone up so dramatically, and number two, it's because nobody wants to buy an EV. Yeah. Right? And buying EVs doesn't make any sense. Not if you're using coal-fired or natural gas or you know, plants to.
Yeah. So what you're basically saying is that they're worried about kids getting another line or learning to be critical to the narrative that is expected, like the government narrative. Well, the other thing that I would say is that homemakers, housewives, reduce our reliance on fiat currency.
Oh, yes, and they reduce the tax base.
And they reduce the tax base. So there's a corporate financial incentive to regard homemakers as being terrorists. I mean, I want
and a government incentive.
We're here. Homemakers are now considered terrorists or terrorist adjacent, perhaps. You know. Well, it's you know, like
if you're a wife, if you're a housewife, right? You don't have any taxable income, and you are actually a dependent. So your husband gets a break on his taxes for you, right? So, and so do your kids, right? So it's like it completely compresses and reduces the tax base, right? From two people earning full-time wages and paying full-time taxes to just one, right? Who's getting tax breaks because he has dependents. And so, I mean, like they just don't like that. They really don't.
And they don't like the idea that you have somebody who is opting to reduce how much is spent rather than increase how much is spent. So, because one of the things that I believe about
Convenience
currency,
foods, everything, right?
about
like
currency, it requires a certain amount of movement in order to maintain its value, because it has no other value. So its value is essentially the amount that it's exchanged. That's what fiat's value is now. So when you have a homemaker who stays at home and reduces the amount that the money moves, reduces the amount of products she's buying from corporations, reduces the amount of taxes she's paying into governments, that is actually violation against the system. And so even though when women work, the majority of the jobs they do are exactly the same jobs that they would have done.
I know. Like every time I say that on camera with somebody in an interview, I say, you know, what are they doing when they go to work? They're making sandwiches. They're bringing food to tables. They're pouring drinks, right? They're being administrative
middle
assistants,
management.
You know, yeah. They're managing the office.
Like the vast majority of women are middle management. What do you think a woman who stays home and manages kids and a household budget and all of the needs of the home is doing? She's a middle manager.
Does the banking and
she's a middle. So like everything women do in the greater world,
teaching
is what they would have done. They're nursing. It's what they would have done in their home, except it wouldn't be taxable. It wouldn't add to the economy, and they would have complete control over their daily like what they do, you know, when it's done. They'd have complete control over that. They can be completely autonomous. So it's like, who does this really benefit at the end of the day if women are just going out to do the work they would have done at home with complete autonomy and control over their schedule, and now they're paying taxes and spending more money on so-called convenience items, which are not very convenient if you think about it, because the only reason why you're doing them is you don't have the time to eat properly, to properly take care of the things that you own, etc. So it's like, yes, of course, a corpo government system is going to say that homemakers are terrorists, because they completely and utterly, without doing a single violent thing, they undermine corporations and they undermine the collusion between corporations and government, and they undermine fiat currency. Like this is just like, otherwise it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense for any government-aligned organization dealing with terrorism to regard women making autonomous decisions about how they're going to structure their family life as terrorists or terrorist adjacent or creeping towards possible terrorism in the future. It doesn't make any sense. The threat response, it's like when somebody is responding to something that is no threat whatsoever, you have to ask why. Why are they doing that? All right. Do you want to go to the next section, or shall we?
Yeah, we can go. Oh, I got a Super Chow I should read, and
Brian.
Yeah.
When you start talking, there's a real it's horrible.
It's a background.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. There's like air conditioner ice hot in Virginia, and so our air conditioner is on, and you know, when I do have like a thing that ducks the audio, but it picks it up for an instant first.
Okay, yeah.
So, and then it ducks it. So, you know, this is hopefully the least annoying thing that I can do. So
it is what it is.
Yeah, it's hot, man. You don't want me sweating.
Local scenarios, you know.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, I got some Super Chow, a Super Chow and a Super Chat. So Kind Torment gave us $5 and then $5, so maybe that was for the fundraiser, and says, I am wondering if anyone has brought up the counter meme to the man or bear meme. Ask a man that is having a bad day, would you rather talk about your problems to a woman or a tree?
Oh, tree, definitely.
Yeah, right.
Ask a woman that.
It doesn't
as well.
Yeah. I don't know, like it, you know, it's probably upsetting women, but I don't think that those two things are even close in terms of like comparison, like having your feelings hurt versus like, you know, comparing a man to, dehumanizing someone. But thank you for that. Yes, I have seen it. Albert Native Retro gives us $2 Canadian in a super chat and says, Karen, yay, welcome back. Yeah, I think we're working now. I think that this will be a productive setup for the future. Karen's computer can run it and it doesn't like burn her legs. So then, you know, that works out for everybody. So we just have to prepare and make sure that we're on the ball. Okay, now back to this. So, yeah. Preventing and countering. Did I read this part?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, okay. Next, current and emerging threats. Oh, what are the current threats? Here we go. Yeah. In order to prevent or counter terrorism and extremism, both CT policymakers and frontline practitioners must be informed by evidence-based assessments of the various extremist threats that they are facing. In order to provide such assessments, the Current and Emerging Threats Program studies the ideologies and tactics of a variety of terrorist and extremist actors. It covers jihadist terrorism, as well as right-wing extremism and anti-government extremism. But you repeat yourself, I think. And examines, among other things, how such movements form, what their beliefs are, how they try to achieve their goals, and where they are getting their support. In doing so, it develops up-to-date insights into the ever-changing dynamics of terrorism and extremism.
Well, okay,
that's weird. They didn't leave any. They seem to have left out the communists and the Antifas.
Anti-government, right? Like I was gonna say, you know, like anti-government isn't necessarily right-wing, right? Because Antifa are anarchists, right? They're just left-wing anarchists. Yeah, well, there's no way to a true anarchist, cooperative, communist state other than through authoritarian government. And then once everything's all redistributed and
we'll go from there and certainly fix it. Yeah.
Then the state will just wither away on its own. Like that ever happens.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Okay.
All right. You want to say anything else, or?
No, I just want to say that a variety of terrorist and extremist actors. So there's no left-wing extremism, none whatsoever. Left-wing isn't anti-government; they're just anti-cop. And right-wing extremism, a branch of right-wing extremism is homemakers, housewives. Okay.
Yeah, very fair and balanced.
Very fair and balanced, friends. Very fair. And I say that I'm not right-wing. I'm not a housewife, but I think that it is absolutely absurd to regard women who've made a choice about their life, an autonomous choice about their life, to be terroristic in nature. That's just sick. That's sick. Like, at this point, you have to realize that there is something seriously wrong here. Seriously wrong. And I'm actually really glad that this feminist tweeted this at me and to just prove that.
Was she trying to like demonstrate? This is like a thing that they do a lot. Is the left loves to defer to what they consider to be authoritative sources. So they'll say, this is where like their data comes from, right? Like they'll be like, look at this feminist study that demonstrates this thing, and it's like, oh, how many people are in it? Oh, look, it's like 99% agreement, and that we have a consensus. Therefore, this thing is true. And so when they will often show their ass when they send you something saying, look, this proves you're a terrorist, and all it does is shows how fucking paranoid they are, you know, about reality. Like, oh no, women and men, you know, getting along and starting families and having kids and working together, cats and dogs, total hysteria. Yeah, right. Yeah, but I mean, what it does is it shows you like what they find troubling. It's like, you know, it's just like men forming their own spaces. It's the same thing. They problematize it.
Men and women coming together and forming
very dangerous.
Yeah, men sheds, very dangerous.
Or even men and women coming together and doing something for men. Like, that's dangerous too.
Right. Give me a moment. I have to get up and
Yeah,
put
we'll
some
move on to.
water in my roast. So I'll
Okay,
be right back.
go water your roast. Go do
All right.
your a terrorist.
I'm just gonna
activity.
transform it so it's just the two of us, and then when Karen comes back, it'll be the three of us. Should I continue on the article?
Well, I mean, this is just them talking about themselves, pontificating about how wonderful.
Do you want to get into? Yeah, I can see that. This is basically the pitch, right? These people get a lot of government money, and they're like, look, this is what we're going to do for you. We're going to protect you from housewives, virgins, gamers, and men who like to fish with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, and people care about men's issues. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you have to ask yourself, what's the real threat here? If we are elevated to that level of threat, why? Why does the establishment find us so scary? That's the real question, because
we're teaching kids.
I guess you're right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the primary thing is, like even if you go back to that Aaron Russo interview where he talked about David Rockefeller, I think it was, who was a friend of his, and he said, well, why do you think women's liberation, David Rockefeller funded that, and he said, well, get women out of the home, get them earning income that can be taxed, and get the kids in public schools where you can control everything that they learn, right? And that was the whole goal, right? And you can argue as to whether it was like, whether it was successful or whatever, but or whether it was like a really grand conspiracy on behalf of like all of the powers that be. But I mean, there were definitely people who had an interest in getting women into the workforce where they could be taxed. But what's frustrating is I think that if that was the thought, they thought wrong, because when you actually look at it, women in the workforce actually costs the tax system money, right? Because they just need so much help, right?
Yep.
If they're not married and they're not with someone who is a primary breadwinner, who can basically pay all of the bills, and maybe she works part-time and she pays for the vacations and the new furniture, every now and then, to spruce up the place. If they're not doing it like that, then if they're actually just single mothers, then they're just a massive burden on the tax system.
Can I make an observation? So maybe the ultimate aim wasn't to increase the tax base; it was to increase the base for the use of fiat. So to make sure that there's enough volume going through each second that it can maintain its value. When you look at it that way, it all of the gender issues just sort of fall into place. All of the stuff, all the chaos that they've created makes perfect sense. Of course, the problem is that they're on the top of a pyramid scheme. And eventually that's gonna come and bite them in the ass. And meanwhile, they've destroyed the entire productivity of a society by destroying the relationships between men and women, which is where productivity starts.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Should we?
Let's get into this.
Let's get into the article. Okay.
No, wait. Before we get into the article, I want you to bring up the PDF I sent you. Mapping the ideological landscape of extreme misogyny. Did you have that?
Oh yeah, I see it. Yep. Hold on a second. Let me just.
We don't need to go to the about. So the part that I want you to go to is conceptualizing extreme misogyny.
All right. So half of humanity is okay. Mapping the ideological landscape of extreme misogyny.
Dun dun dun.
Oh man, it's the same group.
Half of humanity has something to say. They haven't shut up for like more than 100 years. Oh, but no one's listening? Okay, yeah. Yes,
yeah, nobody's listening. That's why you have the other side of the equation listed as a terrorist group. Yeah, nobody's listening. Nope. They're just going to jail your opponents. Anybody who disagrees with you. Oh, good Lord. Okay, that's how they justify this, though. If anybody disagrees with them, that means they're being silenced. Therefore, the government needs to jail anyone who disagrees. And only then will they be equal.
See, and now you've done it, Allison.
What?
Now I have to take an Advil.
Was it me or was it this?
Well, we all know that when it comes to terrorism, during the Summer of Love of 2020, it was all housewives in their skirts that were burning down Targets and looting Walmarts, along with their husbands who were wearing tweed suits and smoking pipes. Throwing Molotov cocktails.
I need to stop you from doing a terrorism there. It's a terrorism to talk about.
Do you remember
being terroristic to engage in arson and murdering people?
Do you remember? Okay, so they had the mom shield, right? The line of moms.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and they all linked arms. These were all like chubby freaking leftist women who were
suburban women.
Yeah, who were like, we will not break and we'll protect the guys behind us who are shooting commercial grade fireworks at these cops who are just trying to protect a federal building, right? And then you had the dads, right? The army of dads with leaf blowers blowing the tear gas away.
I just wanted a grill. You did this. You brought this on yourself.
The wall of moms and the army of dads blowing the tear gas away from the protesters. And I was just like, oh, come on. Don't you people, how much are you paying your babysitter? If you guys are moms and dads, how much are you paying your babysitter so you can be here at this federal courthouse in Portland for no apparent reason? What's going on in there? Do you even know?
Yeah, but those moms and dads aren't engaged in any kind of terrorist or legal activity. Moms and dads who are the ones who are homeschooling their children and raising them and
baking cookies
and baking cookies.
Yeah, the meatloaf and casserole.
Meatloaf. Okay, let's do page 3.
Don't forget
this is where
pork
it gets
roast.
good.
About the about section?
No, keep going, because we've been through the about section. They always repeat the stuff.
Yeah. The abstract?
Nah. Well, you know what? The abstract might be a good one to go through.
Despite the growing complexity of the online misogynist landscape and important efforts, to study some misogynist groups through singular case studies, scholars have a limited understanding of the distinctions between the various relevant misogynist communities in terms of their rhetorical, operational, and social facets. The current research... was
equal recognition of male victims of sexual assault and people who are victims of women. That's it. When I started that's what I wanted. That's it. And here I am likely on a blacklist like this.
You can't say blacklist anymore, Allison.
Okay,
you have to say unapproved list, I think. You can't.
No.
That's problematic.
Of color list.
Of color list.
A list? I'm on a list of color.
Okay, keep going.
All right.
List. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. The current research aims to address this gap by employing a multi-layered analytical framework of different misogynist communities. We begin with a comprehensive literature review, conceptualizing extreme misogyny with an overview of the current misogynist spaces and ideological narratives. Okay. You guys need like a synonym for misogyny. You just used it like a bunch of times. Like, who wrote this?
Not well written, right? You need to vary your nouns.
Oh man.
Thesaurus, people. A thesaurus is a wonderful thing to have.
I just want to say that all I want is a genuine engagement with the statistics that show men don't necessarily rape more than women. That's what I want. They don't grape more than women. So I want them to look at the statistics and engage with them in a genuine manner, because I keep bringing up, and this list is increasing. I don't know if you've noticed this, Karen, but my list of citations that indicate that saying that men grape more than women is probably incorrect just keeps growing year after year after year. And every single time when I show them this list, they say I'm cherry picking. And I'm like, but science doesn't work that way. All I need is one to make you have to go back to the drawing board with your allegation that men rape more than women. I just
but
need one.
but my consensus.
And then
But my popular opinion.
This is what's gotten me highlighted by these people. Like,
But my experts.
But I mean, ultimately, it's more than that. But that was my big thing. Has been my big thing for like decades now. Just engaging with the stats.
And it's never actually been like that. That has never been my own personal, I guess, bugbear or whatever you want to call it, right?
That's fine. You don't have to have my bugbear.
I have many others, and most of it has to do with just people being retards, right? Like it's like how can you look at this picture of a cat and say it's a dog and believe it's a dog?
They keep doing it. They keep doing it. Like my current argument on Twitter, I swear to God, the feminist I'm arguing with is basically like a pack rat in a wind tunnel full of paper, like shards of like paper from like a book, and they're just grabbing shards and presenting whatever they got as a coherent argument. Like it's just insane. And I'm like, why can't I get one of these people to just engage with this in an honest way, in an honest and scientific way, a honest and rational way? And I can't. And because of that, I am a terrorist adjacent individual.
Yeah, well, you're incel adjacent, so
incel adjacent, terrorist adjacent, whatever they want to call me.
Housewife adjacent.
Just because I've looked at the stats and I've said you cannot assert this, like one bit of counter evidence to this stat means that you have to go back to the drawing board. You can't continue to assert this, and that goes for much more stats than just the sexual violence stuff. Like that's my bugbear. I mean, domestic violence is also really important. All of these issues that they refuse to be honest about. They refuse to look at them in terms rationally because they're ideologically motivated to maintain a particular party line in which women are the only victims. So if you're somebody who's trying to break that stranglehold, that blockade, then you are considered now by the ICCT and the Department of Homeland Security to be some kind of terrorist adjacent individual. All because you want people to tell the truth. I mean, even if you don't care about male victims of sexual assault or female victims of female sexual assaulters, even if you don't care about them, don't you want the truth?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I'm getting at. Like, a lot of the people on this side just want them to be honest.
Yeah, no, but they've built an entire model of the world, right, and how it works based on their studies, which, very, very conveniently, they only ask men about how much they perpetrate and women about how much they've been perpetrated upon, right? And so they use those studies to construct a model of reality, and they have full buy-in into that model of reality. And so basically, when you show them counter evidence, when you show them, okay, well, when you ask both parties, both sexes, about their own perpetration and their victimization, right? You get roughly equal numbers. Murray Strauss famously was the first one to really do this, right? In an academic kind of way, right? And everybody loses their fucking minds because they've already, right? And because their model of the world already is it's the path of least resistance in their psyches, right? Of course women are weaker, of course men are more aggressive, of course all of these things, right? Of course men are more capable of violence, of course women are fragile and childlike in some ways, right? And need protection and all of that, right? So it dovetails perfectly with what their psyches are telling them in terms of their evolved psychology, at the same time as now they've constructed this entire schema of how the world works based on those incomplete studies. And then you come and show them the actual complete picture and they're like, no, because that is too big a leap for them. And it's just, because they would have to actually, it's not just that they would have to throw their studies out or that one little piece of their puzzle, right? It's not just that they have to throw out, it's the entire freaking book. It's not like ripping a page out of a novel, and crumpling it up and throwing it away and writing it again. You have to rewrite the entire freaking story. The entire story.
Yeah, but just wanting the truth in regard to sexual assault or domestic violence or false accusations or any of these things that men's issues advocates usually talk about, just wanting the truth gets you labeled a terrorist or terrorist adjacent or whatever the hell they're trying to do here. But even more egregiously, they're doing that to housewives. So let's finish the abstract and then get into...
All right. I'm sorry, where did I leave off at? Because you guys were yes. Consequently, we sample the online ecosystem of extreme misogyny both within and across these communities while utilizing a multi-categorical tool in order to identify the discursive, organizational, and operational distinctions between various misogynist communities. Our findings reflect substantial differences between the various misogynist communities in terms of their legitimacy to violence, the conceptualization of their adversaries, ideological visions, time orientation, and overall operational discourse, concordantly vis-a-vis. This is like the guy at the end of the second Matrix movie that's in the white suit, talking to you when you show up at the, what is it, the architect? That's what this sounds like.
Yeah, it's just gobbledygook, but it's intimidating gobbledygook. The legitimacy to violence.
Kinda.
So what they mean is whether or not they accept violence, most of them don't. In fact, I would say the vast majority of online spaces who talk about these issues have no interest in advocating or promoting violence. The conceptualization of their adversaries. So some of us believe that our adversaries are lying about things like sexual assault and domestic violence.
How dare!
Some don't even really have adversaries because they're just women who want to be homemakers. Their ideological visions, time orientation. I actually am drawing a blank on that one. An overall operational discourse. So essentially, let's put this from corpo speak to just normal language. They all have different.
This is just like
networks. They all talk to different people. They all have different opinions. They all see something else that's wrong. Is it a horrible thing to identify that something might be wrong in society? Because apparently that is now. But of course, when Antifa does it, it's okay. When communists do it, it's okay. When Islamicists do it, it's okay. But when people who are not left do it, then it's terrorism.
It's funny, like their priorities are a bit interesting considering that Western countries are inundated with recent visitors, I'll say, that often have a shared belief in an Islamic faith or something akin to statism because they're coming here like, oh, I heard there's free shit over here. And yet that's not an issue. That's not an issue. It's the people who already live here that are married in families and like that, I guess, or want to homeschool their children, like Karen said. I don't know. Is this something that came ever since the COOF lockdowns and the government overreach?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Sorry, which? I was just reading ahead.
Oh, it's okay. This kind of cracking down because like when that happened, a lot of mothers were homeschooling their children.
Yeah.
And a
lot of parents. This is why there's been such sparks flying at school board meetings in the U.S. Is because kids were attending school by Zoom, and parents were actually witnessing what their kids were being taught in class, and they were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what is this? Commie freaking academy? What? Right? So, yeah, no, like, you're talking about, like, elementary schoolers being, hailing, all hail the LGBTQ flag, and teacher's gonna talk about her sexual orientation and her her gender,
Coming out to her classroom and stuff.
non-binary status, and and all of these things, right? And it's like, these kids weren't necessarily coming home. The kids weren't necessarily coming home from school and telling their parents this, right? And one of the reasons why is because the teachers, right? And I don't know about you, but my parents always taught me when I was a kid, right? If there's an adult who talks about something with you that isn't exactly apropos
Kosher.
of the subject matter, no, it's just off topic, right? Like, we're doing a math lesson. What do I need to know about the fact that you're a woman and you have a wife and she's non-binary and and blah blah blah, right? Like, it's not part of school, right? And then they tell you, don't tell your parents, right? That was so if somebody says something to you that seems a little off, right? A little off topic, not part of a normal conversation, right? And it has to do with, private parts and things like that, and their personal lives. And they tell you not to tell your parents. It's probably time to tell your parents.
Yeah. If any kids might be slipping through the cracks and listening.
Yeah, I'm hearing that the numbers for female teachers that SA their male students, that is a growing number, or at least people are finding that it's a bigger problem than we thought previously. Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I just want to say, let's skip the introduction because they're just poisoning the well by bringing up 2 incidents of violence.
Yeah, I know. Alec Manassian. Yeah.
Alec Manassian didn't have anything to do with incel violence. It was discovered that he had significant pressures in his life related to losing a job that triggered this, and he was just bullshitting. Because a lot of times when people who are that mentally ill don't really have a very good handle on what's actually driving them. And then there's another incident. 2 people were shot in a yoga studio. Again, that's like 5 years ago from this report.
Yeah.
So
I think I remember something about that, but yeah.
Out. Substantially more women kill their husbands or live in male partners than have ever killed incel violence. And yet, again, what do they choose to focus on?
Yeah.
Like, this is actually sort of sick. Substantially more men kill themselves than will ever engage in any kind of violence towards anyone else. But what do they choose to focus on? What do they choose to focus on? That's all I wanted to say. Let's get down to who they're focusing on.
So this one, conceptualizing extreme misogyny? No.
Yes, but it's not on the.
We're going to the men's rights activists.
Hey, we are listed.
We are listed. Oh, we're the first one. We are first on the list. Look, male-supported misogyny. So what is it? You want me to read the men's rights activist section?
Well, actually, read the whole. Start from the beginning.
We'll start from the beginning. Okay. All right. We'll get the context. We don't want to misrepresent them.
No.
We don't want to misrepresent them.
Misrepresent us.
So, okay, male-supported misogyny spread across multiple online platforms, blogs, forums, message boards, social media, etc. The Manosphere ecosystem is far from homogeneous, differing on topics, user motivations, and engagement levels. However, it is all united by the concept of the red pill, derived from the 1999 film The Matrix. As Ging notes, the red pill philosophy purports to awaken men to feminism's misandry and brainwashing, and is the key concept that unites all those communities. I don't have a problem with that. The red pill has become a recurrent cultural motif across the manosphere to cement a transnational collective identity. Transnational collective identity, supplemented more recently by the black pill, an adjacent concept of nihilism that is usually, but not exclusively, ascribed to incels. In the description of the manosphere communities below, it should be noted that there are not always clear boundaries between these groups, and overlap between them is common. But while some communities such as PUAs and MGTOW have starkly different orientations, they do converge on an anti-feminist agenda.
I want everybody to note this. It's terrorism to be non-feminist, to not believe what feminist says about men and women. That's considered to be presumably terrorism or terrorism adjacent.
Extremism.
Extremism. To not agree with feminism.
I've been an extremist all my life, apparently.
The government, by the Department of Homeland Security, by this similar organization in Europe, like that's where we're at. You cannot disagree with feminism. You cannot disagree.
Think and do tank.
Otherwise, you are an extremist, a potential terrorist. Like, and this is not mainstream. Somehow they're all still underdogs, even though anybody who disagrees with them, we're moving more and more close to getting them jailed or put in camps. Like, this is really ugly, and I would oppose feminism simply because you can't criticize it without being considered an extremist. There is nothing on this earth that should be allowed to hold that position in our thinking, period. There should be nothing that's above criticism. Nothing. So this document has just explained why feminism has no legitimacy, because it can't be criticized. And something that's purported to be based on science, and you put it in a position where you can't criticize it, it's no longer science. It is religion. And it's not even religion that, people, that keeps a community together, that helps bring out the best in people morally. It is, we need a new word for it. It is a religion. It is a cult.
Yep.
It is a cult. Not even a religion. It is a cult. All right. And it's like a state-sponsored cult, which is terrible.
Absolutely. An astroturfed cult. All right. So where was I now? Actually, I'm just going to the next section. So first group, men's rights activists. One of the oldest groups of the Manosphere that emerged during second wave feminism as an ally against gender hierarchies is the men's rights movement. It has since splintered into anti-feminist MRAs who believe that feminist practices, policies, and narratives are to blame for many contemporary social crises and societal breakdowns.
Okay, just
MRAs.
for a second.
Yep. Okay.
Literally, Mary Koss, who is a much-cited feminist, supposed researcher, has made it so that male victims of sexual assault are not recorded in the statistics by essentially saying that a woman forcing a man to have sex is not rape.
Yeah.
You are never going to get me to believe that that doesn't represent feminists creating, just making a problem for male victims.
Distorting a reality.
Distorting a reality and making a problem for male victims. Like, making it so that male victims have less lobbying power because they are less. They are seen as lesser, are less important, and less of a population.
Well,
like,
she didn't just say, okay, they haven't been raped. Like, that it doesn't count as rape. She basically said, while it's true, right, that some men feel like they've been victimized when they were ambivalent about their own sexual desires, right? So she's basically saying these guys actually wanted it, right?
Yes.
They didn't know they wanted it at the time, but they actually really wanted it. And it's like, that is like, because you can say, okay, we're going to narrowly define rape as something that can only be done to a woman and only be done with a penis, right? You can say that, and you can say that, you can even argue that, men should be able to physically defend themselves against sexual assault and things like that. And so it's, we should be skeptical whenever one of them claims that they've been forced to have sexual intercourse or any kind of sexual activity with a woman when, a woman forces them to do it. And you can even argue, right, that, biologically it's erections, we might want to be a little skeptical about that too. But to just write off the entire category, right, the entire category of male victims of any kind of sexual assault, right, any kind of rape as well, they really actually wanted it, and they just didn't realize at the time that they wanted it, or they changed their minds afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no,
then this is prevalent.
That Mary Koss quote was just like,
it's really hideous.
Oh.
And that is prevalent in feminist research, is the minimization of males' experiences of violence, domestic violence, and sexual assault by women. And for no other reason than the narrative that it's a male-only crime with female-only victims makes them more money. That's the only reason I can see, and gives them more clout. So they are throwing male victims under the bus, and they're also throwing female victims under the bus, because that means you cannot understand the situation enough to actually make it move the needle on reducing it if you refuse to look at half the data. So this is the and if you question all of that, if you recognize that, you are an extremist. Okay, let's continue, Brian.
All right. Okay. So MMRA's focus on male-related social issues and the alleged institutional, especially legal, discrimination against men. They assert that there is a contemporary crisis of masculinity resulting from men being explicitly oppressed, marginalized, and discriminated against. I don't think we use the word oppressed. I think that's a what do you call it? It's a charged word. I don't think that's correct. But the other stuff, they are marginalized, they are discriminated against. Thus, the erosion of masculine values facilitates the economic, social, and psychological struggles of a large portion of men in Western societies. One of the most influential figures within MRAs is Paul Elam. Shout out to Paul, who runs the popular A Voice for Men website, in which its contributors, quote, frequently deploy violent rhetoric in their focus on issues such as fathers' rights, circumcision, anti-abortion laws, allegedly female perpetrated rape and violence, and in particular, allegedly, and in particular, a supposed epidemic of false rape claims.
So, if you ally yourself with the ideology behind this report, you can't even recognize that men and boys are raped and sexually assaulted by women, apparently. I think we can skip the other ones. It's just the usual suspects and the usual statements about the usual suspects.
Like MGTOW are men that want to be left alone. How awful. I mean, it's like they don't have... PUAs are men that want to please women so that they could sleep with them. How awful. Incels are men who are virgins. How awful. Like what? No, that's what they cover. Oh, gamers. Oh shit, dude. Gamers are on the list. We are the most oppressed minority, guys. Look, we made it into the list. Like, wait, gamers are part of the Manosphere now? What? Unlike the I gotta read this, Allison, I'm sorry. Unlike the aforementioned communities, only a subsection of gamer and geek culture lies in the Manosphere, with group boundaries less neatly defined. This community came to prominence with Gamergate in 2014, based, shout out to Gamergate, and the subsequent networked harassment of women online. In contrast to other communities, the geek and gamer elements of the men's rights community have adopted a significantly different strategy regarding beta masculinity. These cultures rail against, rather than aspire to be, the alpha males of jock culture, whom they refer to as chads, normies, and frat boys. I think you're getting some of your groups confused. Thus, they embrace...
There's overlap.
Yeah, but like that terminology is not gamer terminology. No. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on the context. Yeah, it sounds like more like incel, wizard chant stuff. Yeah. Thus, they embrace the so-called geek traits like intellect and introversion over physical masculinity and extroversion. Furthermore, this community also acts as a gateway and a recruitment pool for members transitioning into Manosphere communities.
Other Manosphere communities. Okay.
Other.
Well, what happened is the gamers were the first, like, community that actually rejected their influence on games, like their attempts to turn games into a means to essentially propagandize the gamer community with all of this intersectional and DEI stuff. Like that's and they will always have that stigma that they were the community that successfully fought back.
Well, they're still fighting back even today. There's like, we're getting all kinds of victories now, and I think that's why they're adding gamers to the list, because it's just like, look, if you look at all of these, like, look, They got tradcons in here. They got fathers' rights movement in here. No fappers. Like, really? No fap?
If you don't masturbate, you're
Oh my
part of the
God.
enemy.
So
you're part of the
basic,
misogynist
look,
armies of
all
the
this is, if you look at it, all of this is just like places where men are at. That's it. They're not that related. Men's rights activists and no faps and tradcons, like, and incels and gamers, like, it's just like where there are men and they're not monsters. They're not treated like demons.
Anybody who criticizes
Oh, man.
this or resists.
I think this stream deserves a like just.
Oversight.
I think this stream deserves a like just for the gamer and no fap categories. We're the Manosphere is growing, guys. We're growing, fam. We're like the umbrella is getting bigger. I know
At least that the no
Go ahead,
fappers
Karen.
aren't wasting their seed. So
yeah, that's true.
Sacred. Every sperm is sacred.
Far right chauvinist groups. I'm assuming this is the Proud Boys. Yeah. One group that advocates this for militant masculinity is the Proud Boys, whose members self-identify as Western chauvinists who refuse to apologize for creating the modern world. Yeah, I mean, but when they see these people are they hear chauvinist and they think that it's something about women, but it's not. It's about being like unapologetically, knightly, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
like I
'cause
said,
the
this is all just
chauvinist is-
criticism.
chauvinism is about knightly behavior. It's about like the sort of the noblesse oblige, the requirement to serve as a knight, as a meter of justice, and as a upholder of the law, and as someone who serves the community in those ways at risk to himself. Right. That's what chauvinism is.
Oh man.
Is anti-feminism cast as extremism?
Yeah.
And presented as potential terrorism in order to start justifying jailing anybody who doesn't agree with feminism. Which is
I'm not even.
terrifying, and I will fight against anything that is put in a position where you can't criticize it or be jailed. Sorry, feminists, you are the evil empire. You are the baddies.
How many years is Tario serving?
30. Enrique Tario? Yeah, like 30 years. Yeah, something like that. His life is over unless he gets a pardon, which I hope he does. But we'll see.
Yeah, well.
But yeah, that's not right. He was arrested because
He was
he
the head of
burned.
the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
He was the head of the Proud Boys. He's a Latino,
Afro-Cuban.
Afro-Cuban. That's it. Afro-Cuban, right?
His parents came to America fleeing Castro.
Yeah, white nationalist Proud Boys, right? So he's the leader of the white nationalist Proud Boys, right? And some Proud Boys were involved in January 6th, and so he
wasn't there, by the way. He wasn't there.
Yeah.
No, but they came to him and picked him up. The feds came and got him. And apparently the charge is that he like destroyed personal property or somebody's property. It was like a BLM flag. He like burned it. That's not 30 years. I don't care who you are. There's the, that's a misdemeanor, a fine. That's it. But that was just the excuse.
He organized an insurrection or something, and
He was accused of conspiring to organize an insurrection. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, not to organize an insurrection, because nobody's been charged on any kind of insurrection-related charges, I don't think.
No. It's all bullshit.
Insurrection hasn't appeared in any of the charges, but yeah, no, he basically, he was the head of the group, and the group did some, I guess, questionable things on January 6th, and so that's 30 years for him. And it's like, really? 30 years, right? Some of these people have been, like when you look at it, and Kamala Harris was like promoting that group to bail out the Minneapolis rioters, right? Who were arrested. Yeah, the bail fund. And she was promoting that on Twitter during the 2020 Summer of Love, and it's like, okay,
yeah.
But you have some of these guys who were just there on Jan 6th, right? They walked on a patch of grass that was where it was on the other side of where the fences were, right? but there were no fences anymore. So they just like happened to be in a spot where they shouldn't have been, that was not any demarked anymore, and they're in jail, and some of them were in jail awaiting trial for like years.
Well, I wonder how they'll. I wonder how the left will deal with this, because they're supporting a tremendous government overreach, and suddenly one of their own hobby horses is in the crosshairs. Have you noticed that?
What do you mean by hobby horses? Afro-Cubans?
No, Gaza.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to describe it any further than that, but that is a left hobby horse that the US government does not appreciate for whatever reason. So how soon are all of those powers and overreach that they supported when it was directed against their so-called political opponents, how soon before they're going to be used against them? And I've said that from the beginning, that don't support this because it can be used against you. But we should move on to the next
Well, I got Super Chow's, a Super Chow and a Super Chat, so I should read it. So Telemnar gave us $50. Thank you, Telemnar. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Come again.
And he says, hello, Karen. Always nice to see you make it to a show. I understand if you're too busy a lot of the time, but it's nice to have your input. There is so much nonsense that needs to be debunked. Also, I would like to congratulate the Badgers generally on moving through this document with such speed. We are several paragraphs in after less than an hour. The paper you're reading is infuriating, but at least the analysis is first rate. These people are trying to move the Overton window so that anyone who disagrees with feminism is an extremist. But I think that there is enough ideas floating around the zeitgeist, like male suicide, differential sentencing in prison, etc., that they will not succeed. And part of that shift in the zeitgeist is due to your efforts. Well done. Thank you, Telemnar. I will say that they're not trying to move the Overton window. They're trying to hold on to it. We're the ones moving it. We're pushing the Overton window with tremendous force. And it's not just us, because all we have to do is put those ideas out there, and then other people talk about it, and they tell their friends, and they tell their friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. And I think it's getting to the point now where these talking points, they're just out there. And now they can't stop it. You know, like there's like a female comedian. Oh man, what's her name? Leonardia. She's like Eastern European woman. Very funny. And she gets it, like completely gets it. She knows I don't know if she watches us, but she's definitely got the talking points, and she's very popular. So yeah, thank you, Telemnar. But I think that it's not an issue of them moving the Overton window. It's them trying to protect the Overton window. Albert Nader Retro gives us $5 Canadian and says, women don't sexually assault men, just as Justin Bieber about his pal Jenny McCarthy. Sheesh. Then there's Bill Maher on Mary Kay Letourneau. Yeah, well, you know. All right, that's it, Allison. Sorry. Now, let me just make sure there's no Rumble rants, because I got Rumble rants. I should read those too, but go ahead.
Sometimes people get in my case about going on Twitter and arguing with people, but you put these points out where you can, basically. And what I've noticed is almost to the word, some of the points that I make have shown up on YouTube comments on completely unrelated videos, and so it's getting out there. And you fight the battle where you can, essentially. So that's why I continue to do that. I just put the points out there. People are picking up on it. They're also picking up on the fact that when I put the points out there, the only responses that feminists have are insults, deflections, denials, and acting like a complete buffoon.
Yep.
So
they always lie, they always project, and they always double down. All right, so Nova Fan, and then they just block you and mute you, or they try to throw you in jail or something, you know. So Nova, this is on Rumble. NovaFan21 gave us $1 and said, if the people who make the report believe Snarkeesian is a gamer, they have cornered themselves by calling gamers terrorists. No, I mean, they believe that she is a woman in gaming, not a gamer. Gamers are just like men that attack women. Women in gaming are specifically women in gaming. You got to understand the lingo, Nova Fan. I am like a main character in a Lovecraftian novel. It's driven me crazy, but I understand. I have insight. NovaFan21 then gives another $1 and says, did I just hear a group accused of only harassment qualifies for the same label as 9/11? Thank you.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
quite. Yes.
This should absolutely infuriate people in Europe, because this is what these individuals, this is the jurisdiction they work under. Also, I mean, you see the same stuff with the Department of Homeland Security funded initiatives in the U.S. Most likely, you also see it in Canada. They've funded these initiatives too. They are wasting taxpayer money on going after people like me who just bring up inconvenient statistics that poke holes in the narrative, rather than people who are actually going to harm others.
Yep.
That is despicable that they're wasting taxpayer money on this. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, what the hell have I done? Just pointed out that you can't say that men are the predominant rapers? It's not a gendered issue? The statistics aren't there? You know, that's one of the few things, and then everything else followed from that. Poking that hole in that particular feminist narrative led me to poking holes in other feminist narratives, and led me to realize that the entire construction is false. And if we base our society on something so important, like a false conception of something so important as the relationship between men and women, we aren't going to have much of a society. Like, that all followed from that. And I am an extremist just because I criticize. And why? Because it really isn't about women. It's about maintaining a particular financial status quo. I guarantee that that's the real fear here. That's the real thing that they're protecting. Okay. Let's go to female supported.
Yeah, we're going to look at female supported misogyny. I did get one more super chat from Flying Falcon for $5. They say, never expect men to save those that hate them. R.I.P. Grandpa. Thank you, Flying Falcon. Okay. So, female supported misogyny also manifests across communities that operate adjacent to the Manosphere, so it's basically the womanosphere, but can still be considered as part of the broader misogynistic online ecosystem. The ideological agendas, affiliation, identity, and roles that women hold within these communities vary according to their involvement within the spectrum. A shared distinguishing feature across all iterations of the spectrum is anti-feminism and the need to persevere traditional gender roles and societal norms currently perceived as under threat in modern day society.
Persevere traditional gender roles. Preserve.
Oh, no, it says persevere though. Yeah,
persevere.
Oh.
But here's the question. Like, I'm pretty sure that I'm not promoting traditional gender roles when I say that the evidence suggests that men are not more likely to rape women than the reverse. In fact, I'm challenging a traditional gender role. Yeah. And yet I'm still in this category. So this is bullshit. All it is criticizing feminism, basically.
It's basically anyone who doesn't. They don't even have to be anti-feminist or non-feminist. They could just be like ambivalent towards feminism. Like, how many gamers do you think would come out and say they're anti-feminist? How many tradcons? Really? Tradcons are feminist. Like, they're basically like second wave feminists, you know, for the most part. You don't really get a lot of people saying, you know, like most tradcons will be, like they won't, that's not very popular. They don't invoke Queen Victoria. They don't say, you know, like, I don't know, the feminism of the suffrage movement was okay or not okay. No, that doesn't happen. Like, this is all people who are like basically not supporting the current thing. That's it.
Yes.
It doesn't even have to be like radical or anti-feminist or highly religious. All that stuff is just stand-ins. It's because all of those have been put into black categories. The male perspective, religion, you know, gender roles, I guess, whatever the fuck that means. People working out their shit together without the oversight of these people. Yeah, people going to the gym, people not masturbating, people playing video games, men playing video games, or whatever. Like that, it's basically they're like, you should be talking about the shit that we care about all the time because Yeah, go ahead.
Choosing your life in the way that we dictate.
Yeah, organizing your life in the way that we think you should, right. So what are some groups of women? Conservative anti-feminist women. Okay. Female supported misogyny is, like, by the way, not a lot of these actually exist. Like, seriously, like if the last couple of years haven't shown you that, like, this is not a common thing. So Female-supported misogyny is apparent within anti-feminist conservative female figures and their rhetoric. These figures reject feminist theory, which stipulates that 1, gender equality is both socially and morally desirable. 2, feminism is a necessity for social change. And 3, gender is socially constructed. All of those are just ridiculous.
Gender equality.
Yeah.
That's okay. First of all,
It might as well be speaking Martian.
they're Mott and Baileying. They're saying that you reject gender equality if you reject feminism. No, I reject the lies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I promote gender equality, a recognition that there is equality in grape, and that neither men nor women are more or less responsible for that human ill. It's not gendered. And yet you have decided to say that if I say that, then I'm an extremist, right?
Well, okay, but these are.
But then you're taking something away. You're taking something away from women if
What
you
I'm
say
saying is
that.
they're Mott and Baileying.
Yeah,
I know.
Okay, but these are conservative anti-feminist women that they're talking about, right? And yes, you know, like you could argue that Christina Hoff Sommers thinks that gender equality is not necessarily socially and morally desirable, right? Like equality of outcome. That feminism is not necessary for social change. I think she would probably agree with that, at least at this point in our history, right? And that gender is socially constructed. I think she would completely disagree with that gender is socially constructed. So I think that these are like conservative anti-feminist women are probably reformed second wavers, right?
Yeah. But a real one would be like Phyllis. The real ones would be like Phyllis Schlafly, yeah, right?
Yeah,
From the beginning.
Well, okay, but Phyllis Schlafly came at it from a conservative perspective of you're opening a Pandora's box, and then people like Christina Hoff Sommers opened that Pandora's box, and then Christina Hoff Sommers said, the shit that came out of that box is getting a little out of hand, and it needs to be packed back in there, right? And because it's gone too far. And so, I mean, like that's the category of women that they're talking about here and what they're thinking. I don't think those women go far enough. I don't think even Phyllis Schlafly went far enough in terms of if she was actually a true conservative woman. But like if she was truly anti-feminist, truly conservative, she would have rejected the vote. She would have said no, women shouldn't have this. And to my knowledge, she never did that. So, and it would be from those conservative principles of, like the base unit of society is not necessarily the individual. It's the family unit, and men and women come together to create that, and men serve a specific role. Traditional role, and women serve another traditional role. And politics, getting women involved in partisan politics is not necessarily going to serve them, right? It's going to put them at odds with their husbands. It's going to put them at odds with their children. It's going to put them at odds with their communities. Like one of the things that the anti-suffragettes said when they were arguing that women shouldn't have the vote was that, like, we do all this charity work, right? We do all of this charity work. We set up poorhouses for orphan children. We set up schools for kids whose parents can't afford to send them to school, and all of these things, right? And in order to do that, we have to ask for money and funding and things from people of all political persuasions, right? We have to lobby all sides of the political spectrum, right? In order to do the work we do. And in order to be able to do that effectively, we have to be removed from that, right? We cannot be partisan politicking while we're trying to serve our communities in the ways that we know how to do best, which is charity work and foundational work and, you know, community work and all of that stuff, right? So, you know, like I look at this and I think, well, okay, that's an argument for women not having the vote. Another argument, and this is actually something that everybody should read. It was a 1903 article in the Atlantic magazine by, oh God, what was his name? Limon Abbott, Lyman Abbott, called Why Women Do Not Wish the Suffrage.
Hannah's been doing a series of talks on that on Thursdays. Tune in to HBR Talk on Thursdays to watch more about suffrage.
It's absolutely, it's an absolutely beautiful, like when you get a little further down, when he starts discussing like the role of government, right? And he says, you know, like, what is the government for? Well, it's to protect person, property, and reputation, right? Against, you know, violence and fraud, right? That's what it's there for, right? Protect person, property, and reputation. And if a government does only that and nothing else, like a government could run the railroad and the mail and, you know, and the express and build the roads and things like that, and, you know, and fine, right? But if he does those, he can do all of those things. If he doesn't do these three fundamental things, then there is no government. And if he does only those three things, then it's a just government, right? Even if the government does nothing else, right? So, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, you know, and then he goes on to say, well, you know, who is called to the posse comitatus, right? Who is called to serve in civil emergency, right? When there's a civil disturbance, called to serve. When there's a natural disaster, called to serve, right? That's men that are called to do that, right? Civilian men called to do these things, to step into these things, right? And okay, so are we going to set up a system where women are only the generals and men are the drafted foot soldiers? Right? When women call the shots and men have to do the enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not just, right? And it's
No,
like,
it's not.
1903, he's saying this, and I'm like, yeah, that's been my argument in terms of like why is the vote and the draft, why are those two issues inextricably intertwined? And it's because men had these civic responsibilities, civic obligations, right? Sometimes military obligations, and they could not say no, right? A boy over 14 could be deputized, essentially, against his will, right? Forcibly deputized and sent out to hunt down a freaking cattle rustler or something, or a murderer or something, right? Like, if a man saw somebody committing a violent crime and didn't raise a hue and someone was raising a hue and cry, like there's somebody, I'm being robbed, right? If he didn't intervene, right, he could be prosecuted for not intervening, right?
So there's a whole bunch of set of responsibilities that men had, and
women never did.
And women were never expected to have. And then feminists will turn around and say that this was a time period that was oppressive to women, and yet the men who put this stuff in place could have easily said, no, you won't get the vote without the corresponding responsibilities to the state and to your fellow citizens. You have to do
women were still viewed as chattel.
You have to do those things first before you're even considered for the vote, like which is the deal that every other group of disenfranchised men got. You had to show that you were willing to sacrifice your life for the state that you wanted a say in. Period. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
And they did not do that with women. So those patriarchs, those female oppressing patriarchs, decided to give women the vote, but not the responsibilities, how is that oppression of women? How could they possibly be motivated by oppressing women in that case?
Yeah.
They could have easily said, no, you're not getting the vote. And just by enforcing equality, like that, they could have just said that, yeah, no, you're not getting the vote because you haven't sacrificed like men do before they're even
or
considered.
you're not willing to sacrifice, right?
Well, but
you're
that's the thing. Even before men who were disenfranchised were considered to be enfranchised, they had to sacrifice. If they were a group of people,
pay before you play.
They paid before they play. Every man who is part of a group that was previously disenfranchised living today, his ancestors had to pay before they played. In other words, they had to lay down their lives before they were even considered for the vote. But women, they didn't have to. They didn't have to lay down their lives before they were even considered for the vote. No.
Yeah, no, and feminists will always counter that. Well, they were giving birth to the next generation of soldiers, not by government edict.
No, there's no comitatus, like commipregnatus. Like,
yeah, no, there's no like baby draft.
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah,
like,
no. Okay, Brian was pointing
literally
this out.
this dystopian future that never was in the past and never will be.
The dystopian future, the Handmaid's Tale, is literally what they would have to do to use that justification that they give birth. You don't give birth by draft. You don't give birth by conscription. You don't give birth without consent. Even in North Korea, Brian was bringing this up. Kim Jong
Un did like a tear-filled speech to all the people begging the women to please make babies because their population was imploding. Although not as much as South Korea. North Korea is doing better than South Korea, but yeah, North Korea, the dictator had to ask, please, could you please make some babies?
The God Emperor on Earth in any country on the world had to ask women.
Beg them.
No way Handmaid's Tale is ever going to happen. Ever.
He was showrunner.
We as a species would rather die than violate women's consent in this matter. That has to say something about us. And the fact that women keep harping on this illogical, unlikely bullshit in order to extort compliance out of men is gross.
Well, it's never happened ever in all of the millennia of human civilization. So it's never happened yet. And it's highly unlikely to ever happen, but it could happen. And because it could happen, something.
Because it could happen, that justifies, reducing men down to 10% of the population and having it so that women can sign them out and rape them at will.
Yeah.
And that's and if you point out that the Handmaid's Tale is incredibly unlikely and shouldn't be used to justify abuse of men, somebody on Twitter will say that you're engaging in lesser evilism.
Oh God.
All right. Because the Handmaid's Tale is the lesser evil that means you can't call out the greater evil. Oh, good Lord. Okay, let's keep going.
All right, so back to the article. That was conservative anti-feminist women. Tradwives, a subculture prevalent with conservative anti-feminist thought, is the tradwife, short for traditional wife or housewife community, predominantly comprised of white heterosexual women. That doesn't mean anything. Who nostalgically interpret and advocate past traditional values, norms, and practices. Key hallmarks of the movement are paramount devotion to the family, the observation of traditional gender roles, pro-patriarchy, pro-life, and even a strong devotion to Christianity. It is important to note, however, that the basic tenets, concepts, and goals within the tradwife movement are interpreted differently by its adherents, thus producing various iterations of misogynistic support and radical ideological thought among the subculture. Iterations range from reserved wives who publicly enjoy the triad-wife homemaker lifestyle to far-right thinkers that publicize their subjectives and political subjectivities and political ideologies under the guise of a triad-wife or an affiliate of the subculture.
Okay, so essentially they talk about their opinions and their experience. That's what they mean by publicize their subjectivities and political ideologies.
Yeah.
But you notice, like now extremists are homemakers. You make a sandwich for anarchy, ladies. The most anti-government act you can do right now is to make a sandwich.
Yep.
Or a pork roast, which reminds me we should wrap this up soon.
Yeah.
I don't see what the difference between conservative anti-feminist women and trad wife is. I think they're trying to create extra categories. There is a trad wife, but it's like an aesthetic thing. Like on TikTok, you know, they dress up like they're 1950s housewives and they like bake cakes and stuff. Yeah, or I can't remember her name, but it's like Estelle something. But it's like an aesthetic. And yeah, they'll make a claim, but like ultimately, there's no real difference between a trad, like what is it, an anti-feminist conservative woman and a trad wife, except the trad wives are just doing an aesthetic thing. It's like literally just like a trend. I don't even know that it necessarily reflects values.
Well, you got to be careful as a woman. You make a sandwich, you might get on the terrorism list.
We're going to get a sandwich, all right. What are you kidding me?
Give me a thank you. Give me a thank you for feminists for getting your right to vote. Otherwise, stop voting and go make me a ham sandwich.
Yeah. There you go, Karen. Go make it a ham sandwich. But know that might get you put on a list.
Well, it's not halal. It's haram.
Okay. Let's get to far-right women.
Brother, okay. Far-right women. Scholars suggest that the trad-wife subculture overlaps with far-right misogynistic communities when women push authoritarian ideological agendas, which are often, I missed it a little bit, masked through the front of a hyper-feminine aesthetic.
Push
within
authoritarian ideological agendas,
which are often masked
in a document where you are regarding women who choose to stay at home and take care of their kids and their husband as potential extremists. This you are the authoritarian ideological agenda. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, you got it. That whole scene. Are we the baddies? You are the baddies.
Hans. Are we the baddies? NovaFan21 gave us $1 in Rumble. Rumble rant and says, gay cake lawsuit. Bake that cake. Sees trad wife. Well, wait, not like that. Don't have a trad wife bake the cake. That's terrible.
Yeah, that opens up so many questions. Is baking the cake progressive or terrorism if a woman does it? Huh.
Interesting. All right. Within far-right misogynistic communities, women promote idealized gender binary roles and recruit both sexes into joining such spaces. Firstly, these idealized gender roles are promoted through suggestions that women represent figures of traditionalism and white, and again, they have to impugn this on people because there's no proof that any of this is white per se. But white purity, whose purpose is to engage in childbearing, maternal caregiving duties, and domestic labor, fulfilling their biological duty. Love, I guess that's also a note, has labeled such women as shield maidens who normalize and shield white supremacy with their delusions of domesticity, purity, and vulnerability.
Don't you think Muslims also have these attitudes? Like,
I think Muslim women stand by their men,
Hispanic, and in fact, I would imagine that black people from traditional cultures in Africa also have these attitudes. These are not white attitudes.
No, they're just, but they're trying to.
Southeast Asia, the conservative culture's there, 100%.
Absolutely. They're painting them as white because they know it's a black category. So you see it and you see white and you're supposed to immediately have a negative reaction. And it works on their people.
I just am offended by their use of Viking terminology.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Shield maiden. I think Shield Main's kind of cool sounding, so I would use it because I like it how it sounds. All right.
It's what you're supposed to be as a woman, right? Okay,
Yeah,
so
sure.
Your husband's sick with a fever, right? And the marauders come. You're supposed to pick up the fucking shotgun.
Yeah,
Defend them
that's
all.
right. That's right.
Right? You're supposed to be like Farmer Hoggett's wife in the movie Babe, Pig in the City, right? He gets injured, and you take that fucking pig on a adventure that sees you through many trials and tribulations. You remember that movie, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm perfectly happy.
I actually never saw Babe in the City. I saw the first one, but I didn't see the
You
second.
never saw
Okay.
Pig in the City?
No.
Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good because it basically is like Farmer Hoggett gets like horribly injured. He's supposed to take his pig for like a big media
Like a fair or something? Oh, media tour. Okay,
media
yeah.
tour, right? And it's like a big opportunity. And then he hurts himself, and so his wife has to do it. And she's got to go with this pig and she's never flown on a plane before. And they go through this like series of incredible misadventures. And it's just such a cute movie. It's just
Yeah, Lindsay likes cute movies. Maybe I'll.
Extremist potential terrorism.
Yeah, that sounds like radical trad wife terrorism
She was coming.
with pigs,
She got strip searched.
and it's not kosher.
No,
She got strip searched at the freaking airport, right? And but she did it. She did it for her husband and her farm.
Yeah, that sounds doing it for your husband, doing it for your father, doing it for your farm, doing it for your family. That's hate speech, Karen. Shut up.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't love men. You can't be.
I'm not listening. But.
If you are motivated by men, if you are motivated by caring about men, you are a hateful person.
It was
You are fined 1 credit for a violation of the verbal morality standard.
Okay,
it was
keep going,
it
Brian.
was such a good movie though. Watch
Yeah.
it. You should watch
Yeah.
it on
Watch it.
Discord.
I will. I'll watch it at some point. Okay. So where was I? Matthias also notes. I read that part. Also notes how far-right female figures such as Lana Locktiff play on alt-maternalism by framing the maternal qualities women possess, as well as their ambitions to, quote, attract the best mate possible and be protected and provided for until death, end quote, as innate natural desires. Furthermore, such figures view and express concern over the alleged threat that societal functioning, traditional womanhood, and national purity currently faces from modern-day structures such as multiculturalism, feminism, and homosexuality. Examples showcasing such radical social conservatism include supporting the restrictions of women's rights to vote, based abortion, and the outlawing of homosexuality. As such, attentional focus is placed on critiquing selected groups such as feminists, leftists, and immigrants with rhetoric riddled in anger, disgust, and criticism.
Yeah, but what if they are worthy of criticism? Like,
Those things are totally worthy of criticism.
feminism should be able to be criticized without anybody being labeled an extremist. And immigration policy is not, criticizing immigration policy is not criticizing immigrants. And criticizing the left doesn't make you a terrorist.
No.
And also this particular group is allied with another think tank. I think it's a think tank, TMC Asser Institute. And I think that they are actually.
Can we just call them Asshat Institute?
They are actually. I'm pretty sure that they are on a particular side, on the Israeli Palestine.
Palestine?
Yes. So, how are they going to square that particular circle? Because leftists are definitely on one side that a lot of government government organizations don't appreciate, shall we say?
Well, and that don't appreciate feminism, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like this is the thing is the other issue with this is that the ideologies that this group purports to represent are fractious. Because I was thinking about when they were talking about how men and women have different, like there's a biological difference between the two. Well, what about trans exclusionary radical feminists? What are you guys going to say about them? Right?
Yeah.
You know, there's so much fracture in what they're presenting as a united front. And I'm like, yeah, you really can't make these sweeping assumptions that if somebody says there's a biological difference between men and women, they are an extremist potential terrorist. Because now you're implicating a whole bunch of people on the left, or who think they're on the left.
Yeah.
You know, and depending on where you fall on the Palestine-Israeli conflict, you could be also implicating a whole bunch of people on the left, and a whole bunch of people on the left who may be for one side or the other, but are also for conservative, a conservative lifestyle. Like, honestly, both Palestine and Israel, no matter which one you support, you're supporting people who are generally pro-conservative lifestyles.
Yeah, but they're not, because those are not Western countries. It's America they hate. They just like criticize Israel by proxy, Allison. So yes, there are traditional cultures in Africa, Asia, the Middle East. None of those matter because they're not America, Canada, or Europe. Those are the only places they hate and attack. That's what it is. It comes out, and the thing is, the reason why leftists side with Palestine against Israel is because Israel is allied with the U.S., so it's by proxy. It has nothing to do with whatever Israel's about.
Who is allying with who?
I'm just saying that's why they hate us. They just hate us. It's not. They don't. There's no logic. They just hate America. They hate Canada. They hate England, and they hate Europe.
Okay,
they just hate those places.
We do have to get moving, so let's do it.
All right.
Okay, I have 5 more minutes, and then like,
so I got
has been showing up periodically and going like this.
Like, I want to eat. Let's not. I don't want him to die. So I got a couple super chats. We can do this again because I got it working pretty well.
Super chats for the end. Leave the super chats.
All right.
Yeah, when I'm gone. Yeah.
All right. So where was I? Oh yeah. Secondly, as recruiters for far-right movements, anti-feminist rhetoric, and the support for misogynist thinking is evidenced by far-right women claiming that society is controlled by feminists pushing anti-male agendas, denying men the opportunities to assert their natural biological masculinity.
Okay.
Where's the lie?
How is that wrong? Yeah.
This is a think tank that influenced government policy, that reflects other think tanks that influence government policy, that the governments listen to, that is regarding anybody who is not feminist as an extremist potential terrorist threat. How can you be in this situation and not recognize that feminism is controlling the institutions and defining anybody who disagrees with it as a extremist or potential threat? Like, you are doing this right now. You are denying the thing that you are doing right this moment. Your hand is in the cookie jar and you are saying, I am not stealing the cookies. Yes, you are. Right now, you are doing the thing that you are saying you are not doing.
You don't do, yeah.
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 That you don't have the power to do.
Yes. Okay, keep going.
All right.
Just wanted to say that.
Such rhetoric lures male viewers into radicalization and engagement within far-right spaces due to the dissemination of fringe ideas into mainstream spaces through mainstream online platforms such as YouTube and Instagram by far-right women, a tactic also used by trad wife influencers. Additionally, cooperation between key thinkers is apparent through regular collaborations and the mutual hosting of fellow far-right female supporters across media platforms,
and they do blogcasts together.
But women have no power. How could they possibly be able to influence men?
Oh, you have to read the next paragraph.
Okay. As such, far-right female leaders facilitate the propagation, cross-pollination, sharing, and reinforcement of far-right ideas through their ability to softly frame their rhetoric and ideology to normalize and legitimize violent action.
Women have social power that we won't acknowledge.
It's
but they need to stop
stochastic
using
terrorism.
Yeah, stochastic terrorism. But women have social power that we refuse to acknowledge in our analysis of history, but we're acknowledging it here so we can stop our opponents from using it.
Yes, or female opponents.
Women don't
Yes.
don't have this power, but if they abuse this power against us, they're terrorists. Okay, just do the
Yes.
first paragraph of extreme misogyny. We got to get
All
through
right.
that.
All right. All of the above communities in many cases legitimize violence and measures of coercion against women and manifest an intense hostility towards symbols of women's empowerment and equality. Feminist institutions and other social constructs that its members feel are threatening to masculinity. Taken together. Yeah, well, taken together, we define the above communities as ones which share an outlook of extreme misogyny. We acknowledge that the misogyny, sexism, and heteropatriarchy expressed by these communities does not operate in a vacuum, but rather builds upon and is inspired by pre-existing social and cultural structures that underpins mainstream society. In short, the misogyny expressed by members of these communities is extreme, but not exceptional. Furthermore, a failure to recognize the link between misogynistic violence as both a systemic and motivational act of terrorism contributes to the normalization of misogyny. Consequently, our study accounts for the prevalence of misogyny coexisting in the form of, quote, everyday intimate terrorism, end quote, as well as spectacular violence.
Okay, so this think tank that influenced
Spectacular violence, tremendous violence. Is it like super
Glorious
awesome violence? Is it like
Yeah.
excellent violence? Oh, it's tremendous! It's tremendous! It's
Okay.
Erotic.
I just want to point
Erotic. Erotic.
I just want to point out that this think tank influences government policy to believe that the people that it can use the government apparatus against. So this is a group of people that can compel the government to start using its apparatus of coercive control against its targets, but it's its targets that reflect the mainstream and institutional opinion. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I wish I could get like an analogy.
Well,
it's like,
well, they're the underdogs who control everything.
they're the underdogs who can control the discourse to the point where they can make their opponents, they can say to the government, you need to start persecuting our opponents. And the government's like, okay, sure. We'll start defining them as terrorists. We'll start
with the housewives, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, exactly. So they want to be seen as the underdog. Meanwhile, they are directing government initiatives of coercive control against people who disagree with them. That is astounding. That is astounding. They're like, I'm sorry, but
Allison,
you are the ones using the cultural structures that underpin
Allison,
society.
It's not astounding. It's just typical.
Yes.
Yeah, really. Why does it shock anybody? Okay, Karen.
I think we can do our super chows, and you can go and feed your husband.
All right.
I don't. This is basically the climax of the insanity.
All right. Well,
They're This entire document is gaslighting.
Of course it is.
It's what they do.
That's all they do. So, all right.
Gaslighting and projecting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Karen.
Confession through projection. I'm out of here, and I'll see you, I guess, on Fridays. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
We'll do this again the same way. Okay. Same way. I'll get you the link, however you got it. Same way. Skype. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Allison can get it to me over Skype.
Yeah, I can do that.
All
Everything
right.
is
All right.
Okay.
Bye, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So super chats and whatnot, right?
And yeah, if you have to change the,
I got
and do the things.
No, I've already done that. I have it pre-set up. So
Okay, good.
Okay, so I got a Rumble rant. I already read the Rumble rant. I got a super chat from Albert Data Retro for $2 Canadian. He says, a man branded a coward might as well leave town. And then he gives another super chat for $10. It's not displaying, but that's okay. I'll just read it. You'd see men in camps for breeding before women, if for no other reason than it's not conductive to put women in a stressful situation. Infertile men would hunt and guard them in exchange for sex. Well, I actually think that's what the most radical, like, lesbian separatists wanted, right? They like want to live on an island and it's just women, and the men just kind of like make things work for them.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, that's, I mean, I legit think that's what the lesbian separatists of the 60s wanted. So anyway, that's it. That's all the super chats. Do we have any support, any thank yous?
Oh yeah, sure. I'll do some thank yous. Just give me a moment. I gotta pull that up, and I gotta do a
smart motherfucker. That's right.
But we do have some thank yous. We have some thank yous from just in between shows as well that I might as well do a shout out for.
Oh, cool.
And once again, if you guys want to support us, you want to join our very generous supporters that make sure that we can continue to bring you this content month after month after month, and move the Overton window by making sure that feminists can't silence the truth with basically the statistics that they don't want you to see, and invested a lot in trying to hide or minimize or ignore, then you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support. I want to do a big thank you to Mnemonics for $5.
Thank you, Mnemonics.
Hey, who's that handsome guy?
There you go. You got like a Johnny Bravo.
Hope
that's okay.
Addict for $250. Thank you.
Ooh.
Addict.
Thank you.
Sunsets are beautiful. Newborn babies are beautiful. This is fucking spectacular.
And $5 from Mrs. Anne of Arc. Thank you, Mrs. Anne of Arc.
Thank you, Mrs. Anne of Arc.
Most impressive.
$50 from Magnus, River Mage.
Oh, we got a lot of support. I wasn't even ready for all this.
Showing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's over the last couple days since I mentioned this. So, and Minx, I'll just use Minx. The first bit of your email, $10. Thank you, Minx.
Thank you.
I don't know, how do you pronounce it? No, it's Minx. Minx. Like the
Men's right activists are machines, dude.
All right, so if at any time after the show is over you want to send us a comment, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Tip.
Just the boob. Send us just the boob.
Just the boob.
The brown pepperoni nipple.
Okay, at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Just the tip. And we will endeavor to read your comment at the next relevant show. And if you want to support the show to make sure we can continue to move that Overton window and we don't concede it to, well, counter-terrorism organizations, god damn, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support. Until we, can't do it, we are going to continue to bring you the truth about the statistics that, well, feminists don't want you to see. And we can bring you the receipts on all of our statements. So feedthebadger.com/support to support us, and feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a tip and a message. All right, back to you, Brian.
All right, so if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show today, and please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of the Rantzerker, and we will talk to you all in the next video. See you all in the patron show.
Give me a thank you for feminists for getting your right to vote. Otherwise, stop voting and go make me a ham sandwich.
Close this.